it's about to become a criminal offence to stir up hatred against certain groups in Scotland. But the laws are controversial, with some commentators saying all of it will serve to stifle free speech. I'm joined now by political commentator and former MSP Brian Monteith. Welcome, Brian.
Hi there. Great to be on the show again.
It's good to see you. Now, you've said, I've read your recent remarks suggesting that the hate crime laws in Scotland could make Scotland a laughingstock. Would you elaborate on that thought?
Yes. What it is that there's an incentive within this system that has been brought in for people to actually make vexatious complaints, that is, complaints without any real substance, simply because, in a sense, they're hate-based themselves, to take down political opponents or to silence people such as J.K. Rowling, who they see as the enemy. There are perverse incentives involved because even if the police do not consider a crime has been committed, they can then record a non-hate crime incident. And that can then be, a number is given, it's put on file, and the supposed victim of what is not a crime is told all this. But it happens without the person who's accused of the crime but has not committed a crime then being told that they are a hate crime incident. It is absolutely absurd because then activists, very hatefully, ironically, can then go about complaining about everybody, trying to force the police to smother them and smother their free speech. So this is going to create more hate, more division in society, rather than actually try and calm people down. And just one other thing, freedom of speech means being able to take hearty words. And that's quite a different thing from inciting violence. Inciting violence should be a crime, but just saying hearty words about, I don't like these people because they have green faces or the wrong religion, that's quite a different thing from violence.
Andrew Eborn.
Yes.
For me, apart from anything else, it is the imprecision that's there in the language of the legislation. I would have thought that something that is the law, going to be the law of the land, would have to give lawyers and the police and everyone else absolute certainty. Yeah. But the notion that someone just comes to the authorities and says that is hateful.
Yes.
Who makes that decision?
You're absolutely right. There needs to be certainty for all involved, including those enforcing the law. They need to have certainty as to what constitutes this hate speech. As what I said beforehand is freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequences. What you need to do is you mustn't stifle freedom of speech. It's essential that we question everything. We encourage other people to express alternative views. What we don't want to do is have the hate speech, which turns into violence and so on and so forth. And I think that's what we need to look at. But when you're having woolly language, what I call woolly language, it makes it difficult for those enforcing it. As you say, you could get a whole catalogue of saying there have been numerous complaints about hate speech against an individual because people have points to score.
Brian, it's not just us, obviously, voicing reservations about all of this. The Dean of the Faculty of Advocates, people representing the police, during the course of this bill's progress through Holyrood, have raised concerns. Does it say something about that administration in Holyrood that they have just pushed and pushed and pushed ahead with something that all sorts of smarter brains were telling them not to do?
Well, this is actually political activism making law. The SNP and the Greens like to talk about consultation, but they actually turn a Nelsonian eye and a deaf ear to the consultation. The truth of it is, how this will be used and why it is so important to them is because once there are so many hate crimes being recorded as incidents, they don't have to be crimes, then they will say, we were right, because there's all these hate crime incidents. And look how the numbers are going up. And of course, as I say, the perverse incentives push these and push people to make more. And so from the back of the rise in supposed hate crime incidents, they'll need more draconian laws, more shutting down of free speech. And it's very interesting that this particular law does not protect women, but it protects all sorts of other groups, i.e. the groups who push the law, but at the expense of women's rights. And women are the targets here. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And because J.K. Rowling has been quite reasonable in what she's said, in my estimation, but obviously is a figurehead to many, they are seeking to try and take people like her down and gain more laws out of it.
Andrew, what it comes down to for me is, when did any government get it in its head that it should be telling the people who pay their wages what to say and even what to think? Hamza Yusuf wants people criminalised for things they say in the privacy of their own home.
Yes, there's that famous T-shirt, isn't it? Think while it's still free to do so. And that's the reality. I mean, you have to have a system where you can basically have those whose views you disagree with, they must have a platform to express those views. That's the whole idea of freedom of speech. And what's going to happen if, on the 1st of April, appropriate date, as you pointed out, we're going to get precedents are going to come up. We're going to see what happens with J.K. Rowling and the statements, and see whether that's accused of being a hate speech under that new legislation. And this is going to happen. I think it's a very, very dangerous ground we're on at the moment because of the woolliness.
Dangerous ground, Brian Monteith. Just a last word from you. How do you see this developing? Are we just going to see a glut of mischievous cases swamping the courts that already struggle to cope with the workload?
I think there are many people in Scotland who will not be able to contain themselves or show any patience and are likely to submit continual complaints. They probably have them already lined. And it will place immense pressure on the police, who have said they will investigate every complaint, when they're not investigating every burglary, every car theft. It just makes the law look an ass. It makes people think that it's not protecting them and not protecting their property. And it's all being done like student union politics. It's not living in the real world where people actually have to live and work and raise families.
Well, Brian Monteith, speaking for myself, as someone who's aired various opinions about various things in the public domain over the years, I await April Fool's Day with some interest. But Brian Monteith, thanks very much for joining us this evening.